The Viltrox 75mm F1.8 EVO is the first APS-C lens in the EVO lineup, together with its sibling 90mm f2.2. The lens costs $329 or 389 euros, and in this video we're going to talk about what this lens is capable of and how I've used it and what you should know about the potential for this lens. Now, 75mm on APS-C is equivalent to 112.5 on full frame or 35mm. This means it's a pretty long lens. It's not a lens that you can use easily on a daily basis. And so it's a lens that has a specific use, which is mostly portraits or stuff like that. But being 75 and not being longer, and that's the reason why I prefer the 75 to the 90, just because of its usability, you can use it also for other stuff. In my specific case, I've used it for landscape, but I also used it for concerts. I used it to photograph my pets or my wife during normal stuff that we were doing together, but also I brought this lens to a professional shooting because I wanted to put this lens through its paces to know what this lens is capable of if you want to push it. Now, my usual disclaimer, Viltrox sent me this lens to test and review, but this lens is going back as soon as I'm done, actually probably today, and I haven't been paid for that, and they have no saying about what I'm going to tell you in this video. So these are my thoughts and my thoughts only, and now without any further ado, let's go talk about the lens. Now, from a construction standpoint, the lens is built really well. It's made of metal and high quality plastics. It shows a metal mount and a gasket at the mount to prevent water from going inside the mount, and it also has an aperture ring. Now, this is the Fujifilm version because the other versions, let's just say in this case APS-C for Sony and Nikon, they also have an autofocus monofocus switch, a function button, and a declickable aperture ring through a switch on the side of the barrel. Now, I don't know exactly why the Fujifilm version is a little bit more of a stripped down version of this lens. I believe it's an additional cost for Viltrox to separate the way they build the barrels, so I believe they had to do it for a specific reason that I'm not aware of, because otherwise they would have left everything the same, which is what they usually do with all the other lenses. So I don't know what it is. There must be a reason. All in all, however, when it comes to the construction and the feature set of this lens, even if it's a more stripped down version, you can't really complain about it. And the lens is fairly compact and lightweight because it only weighs 325 grams. And being this small and this compact, despite being a bright telephoto lens, makes it very usable even on a small camera like my XE5. So I didn't have any issue, and I don't use any additional grip. The only thing that I use on my XE5 is a thumb grip, because thumb rest, because it helps me hold the camera, but I don't use any additional grip, and I didn't feel like I needed to use an additional grip to operate this lens. As usual with any Viltrox lens, you also get the plastic hood and of course the front cap and the rear cap, and in the box you also find a lens pouch if you want to carry your lens around. Now, where Viltrox usually knocks it out of the park when it comes to their lenses compared to the price they're sold at, it's in the image quality, because they usually get us incredible image quality for a very affordable price, and this lens is no exception to that. It's actually even better. I keep saying the EVO series is probably the most balanced because it gets you incredible image quality, a lot of features, and at the price that is manageable. This lens falls exactly into that category because this lens is super sharp, even wide open, corner to corner. And when you stop it down to f2.8, you have a minimal increase of sharpness throughout the frame, but besides that, you get nothing more. Even if you stop it down, you won't see any additional sharpness just because the sharpness is already incredible at f1.8. The lens performs incredibly well up to f8. When you go to f11, you start to see some diffraction creeping in, and f16, that gets even worse. But usually you don't use a telephoto like that at f11 or f16 because this is not a macro. The minimum focusing distance is not great. Like, no Viltrox lenses have shown a very close minimum focusing distance. This is the only thing that if you want to complain about with Viltrox, you can. But besides that, it's just an incredible performance. What you see wide open is some vignetting that it's basically gone once you stop down to f4. But again, on a telephoto lens like this, I wouldn't consider that a big issue, and I wouldn't consider it an issue at all. If anything, it probably helps you draw the attention to the subject that you're photographing, and you're usually putting approximately in the center of the frame. There is also basically no chromatic aberration at all. This lens is not falling into the apochromatic lens design that Viltrox has shown with the 35 and the 55 f4 full frame, but even if it's not called apochromatic, this lens, I couldn't find any chromatic aberration, even wide open, even against the sun. The bokeh is just really, really, really good. It's very smooth, it's very pleasing to look at. Sometimes with super busy backgrounds, it can show a level of nervousness that you don't see normally, but for the most part, the bokeh is just spectacular. The only area where you can complain about is the resistance to flare and ghosting. A lens this long is usually prone to flare and ghosting anyways. This lens shows a visible amount of flare and some ghosting, and also loses some contrast when the sun is at a specific angle. So if you want to find something to complain about, this is the only thing, because besides that, this lens is substantially flawless. When it comes to autofocus, a 75mm F1.8 with STM motors like this Viltrox lens will never be blazing fast. That is a fact. If you combine that with a camera like the Fujifilm X-E5, which is good but not spectacular, things are not going any better. This lens, again, is no exception to that. The autofocus is good, is really good, especially on Fujifilm. If you're shooting on single autofocus, you don't have much to complain about, especially if your subject is not moving too fast towards or from you. But once you start going to autofocus continuous and the subject is moving towards yours, going from you to somewhere else, that's where you see a lot of misses. And like I always say in this channel, this is mostly a problem that is coming from the Fujifilm autofocusing algorithms more than from the lens. Because this happens with Viltrox lenses, with Fujifilm lenses, with Sigma lenses, and any other lens that I've used on the Fujifilm system has this struggle. Some struggle more, some struggle less, but the struggle is there. So I can't really fault the lens for this performance. But it's something that you need to know, because if you go into purchasing a lens and then expect that you're going to miss focus, this is not going to be the case. You will miss focus, especially if the subject is moving pretty fast. And I know for a fact it's not the lens, because I have EVO lenses for my Nikon ZF, and that camera, although not perfect, is much, much better than the X-E5 and shows way more consistent results. So the autofocusing system is the same, the lens is made by the same manufacturer. I have to blame the camera more than I have to blame the lens. So keep that in mind. Autofocus is good, but not spectacular, and this is mostly due to Fujifilm's autofocus system. And this is where the new generation of Fujifilm cameras has to make a substantial improvement, because the competition has gone way, way ahead when it comes to autofocus, and Fujifilm hasn't been able to manage to catch them. Now, when it comes to video, this is mostly a photographer's lens. I have no doubts about that, but this doesn't mean that you can't use it for video. There's two things that you need to keep in mind. One, the lens is not stabilized, so you either rely on your IBIS or other stabilization means if you want to shoot it handheld, and the lens shows a pretty visible focus bleeding. Now, with a 75mm like this, you will not be going from very close to infinity when it comes to focusing distance that often in video. So it's something that I wouldn't really be worried about, but it's something you need to know. Besides that, when it comes to the autofocusing in video, everything that I told you a minute ago, speaking about the autofocus for Fujifilm, remains the same. The lens can be used for video and the autofocus is relatively good, but sometimes the transitions are glitchy, is not perfect. Sometimes it refuses to focus on something. And again, my experience is This is Fujifilm's issue with autofocus continuous more than the lenses, because again, these lenses I've used them with other mounts and the performance has been relatively good. Again, they're not built for video, but they can be used for video. In conclusion, for me, at this price point, if you're looking for a long telephoto lens, if you're looking something beyond the 90mm equivalent, the 85mm equivalent, this lens is basically a no-brainer for a simple reason. It costs a reasonable amount of money. It's not super expensive. It's compact. It's lightweight. It's got an incredible image quality. It's got good autofocus with all the asterisks that we have just discussed. And in my opinion, the 75mm is the right focal length on APS-C because it's equivalent to 112.5 rather than going to the 90, which is then now 135. And at that point, you need to have a lot of distance between you and your subject. And I absolutely loved the time that I had with this lens. I love the result that I was getting, and I can easily recommend this lens for anyone who's looking for a telephoto lens to compress the background and blur the background more than you usually get with your 56 1.8 or 1.7 or something like that. It's a lens that has everything that you can possibly ask for. It checks all the boxes you can possibly ask for at a reasonable price. I believe that's it for today. Ciao, grazie, and I'll see you in the next one.